99% players are losing in Clash Royale because their deck sucks. And you—
This is true. My God, that is true. Dude, some of the decks y'all are running are trash.
You are probably one of them. But here's the good news for you. Building a deck is not hard. And in this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how to build your own deck for every win condition in Clash Royale. Royale Giant. The Royale Giant is a 6 elixir tank that shoots cannonballs from a range. The purpose of Royale Giant decks is—
You need Electro Spirit. Listen to me, I already know what he's going to say. If you're going to use Royale Giant, you need Electro Spirit.
To outcycle your opponent's counters to get damage. So, the first rule of building a Royale Giant deck is that it shouldn't be too expensive. Now, the Royale Giant is countered by cards like P.E.K.K.A, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Prince, etc. Since these cards can't be taken out by spells, you always need to have the Fisherman in your deck. The Fisherman can pull troops away from your Royale Giant so that he can get a few extra shots on the tower. The Royale Giant can also be countered by swarms, like Skeleton Army or Goblin Gang. So now you need something to counter the swarms. A spell like the Log, Rage, or Arrows can do a pretty good job. Since most decks have more than one swarm card, adding a Spirit card can be really helpful. An Electro Spirit or Ice Spirit can help reset units.
The reason why Electro Spirit is the absolute best spirit in the game for Royale Giant and X-Bow decks specifically, every pro runs E-Spirit, is because if they activate the King Tower, it doesn't matter because the Royale Giant and the X-Bow are so far away from the King Tower, it'll never be able to hit them anyways.
And also counter swarms like bats. Your final offensive card should be a
This
big
is a
spell
very helpful video
trying to kill your Royale Giant. Don't opt for spells like Rocket or Poison. They're too slow and the building can counter the Royale Giant in the meantime. Instead, use instant spells like Lightning, Earthquake, or Fireball. Now that your offense is sorted, we need to add cards for defense. First of all, you need a mini tank which can help you counter opponent troops and also add some pressure on offense. Cards like Royal Ghost, Monk, Skeleton King, or even a Knight fit really well for this role.
The reason why Royal Ghost is very common in Royale Giant decks is because he'll sneak in front of the Royale Giant, but he'll be invisible, so the Royal Giant will get shot by the Princess Tower while the Royal Ghost just goes ham, undisturbed. Really good. I would highly recommend not having the Knight. Throw in the Royal Ghost.
You also need a card that deals high damage to counter both air and ground troops. Cards like Hunter, Wizard, Executioner, or even the Witch are a good choice for this. If you have the evolution of these cards, make sure to use it. And lastly, a Swarm card is needed to tank critical hits from cards and distract enemy troops. Use Skeletons if you want a faster cycle on offense, else you can use Guards or Goblin Gang if you want to be a bit safer on defense. That's how you can build your own Royale Giant deck that actually works.
Perfect video. Ooh, Graveyard!
Graveyard! The Graveyard is one of the strongest win conditions in the game. It keeps spawning skeletons in a circular radius for 9 seconds. Since it's a spell, you can deploy it anywhere in the arena. A Graveyard deck requires a lot of patience to play. Graveyard is not that strong if you play it solo. You will need a mini tank to absorb hits while your Graveyard deals damage. Usually a Knight and Valkyrie fit this spot perfectly well. They are cheap and can deal good damage, both on offense and defense. If you have the evolved versions of these cards, then use them definitely. Graveyard decks will always need splash damage cards to counter swarms and defend against enemy troops. Cards like Ice Wizard, Baby Dragon, Executioner, Witch, and Bowler are great picks. Use any 2 of these cards. Splash damage cards have great synergy with Tornado, so you need to have it in your deck for sure. Since Tornado is weak against log bait decks, another small spell is needed. Now, you can use the log or zap if you want, but the Barbarian Barrel is the best choice for the second small spell. The reason for that is that the Barbarian Barrel can also tank for your Graveyard. To make your defense even stronger, you also need a good building in your deck. Graveyard decks usually run either Tombstone, Cannon, Goblin Hut, or Bomb Tower. Choose one of these. One important thing to note is that you shouldn't use expensive splash damage cards with expensive buildings. These will make your deck slow and you won't be able to use your Graveyard often. So opt for a good balance amongst your defensive cards. Your final card should be a spell. Poison and Freeze are the 2 best spells to use with a Graveyard. Poison destroys troops trying to defend against your Graveyard. Freeze spell? Well, it just freezes them while your Graveyard skeletons kill them. You can use a Fireball too, but Poison and Freeze just synergize better with the Graveyard. Golem. The Golem is a heavy 8 elixir tank. Usually Golem decks tend to be a bit expensive. As a Golem player, you'll want to defend lightly and focus more on building a huge push. To build an
Yes, the reason why Golem decks are really like just aura is like you can be losing by 2 towers, and Golem is probably the only win condition in the game where you can still win. Either that or Elixir Golem with healer.
unstoppable Golem push, you need to have strong support cards. To support your Golem from the ground, cards like Night Witch, Lumberjack, Battle Healer, Mini P.E.K.K.A, or Dark Prince are preferred. These cards are supposed to deal heavy damage from behind while your Golem tanks for them. Use 2 of these cards in your deck.
I would recommend, if you're going to use Golem or Elixir Golem, to definitely have healer. Bro, especially in this current meta, it prolongs the pushes so well. I also think the Evo Electro Dragon is the best supporting card for a Golem with a healer.
For air support, you will need a mini air tank that can deal good damage. Cards like Baby Dragon, Electro Dragon, Skeleton Dragon, Phoenix, or even a Mega Minion work great with Golem. These cards can support your Golem as well as help on defense. You can use 1 or 2 of these cards. If you play a Golem, you can get punished.
Like, one key thing is, like, if you're building decks based off this video, don't just build whatever the best deck is that build whatever you have leveled up, and then you can upgrade the cards you actually want. Like, if you have a level 5 E-Dragon, but you have level 12 Skelly Dragons, obviously use the Skelly Dragons.
Easily. To defend the opponent's pushes lightly, you need a cheap defensive card. This card will minimize the damage you take for less elixir, and you can focus on building your Golem push. Cards like Bomber, Guards, or Ice Wizard are perfect for this role. When it comes to spells, Golem decks will run 2 to 3 spells. Small spells like Goblin Barrel, Zap, and Arrows are good choices. You can also use the Tornado if you have support troops that deal good splash damage. Use 1 to 2 small spells. For big spells, Lightning and Fireball are the best options since they deal instant damage. Alternatively, you can also run an Elixir Collector instead of a big spell if your deck is getting way too expensive.
Yeah.
Use either one big spell or an Elixir Collector. One important rule is to always have a card in your Golem deck that can reset Infernos and Sparky. So make sure you're always carrying one of either Electro Dragon, Zap,
Good
or
advice!
Elixir Golem. The Elixir Golem is a 3 elixir win condition. It's quite a tricky one since it gives elixir to your opponent.
Dude, which, by the way, the last 3 days on top ladder, I think this is probably the most common win condition I've seen.
Destroyed. So you need to build a really aggressive deck so that your opponent always overcommits elixir on defense. First of all, you need heavy damage dealing support cards. Night Witch, Goblin Machine, Skeleton King, and Elite Barbarians are great for this purpose. You can also add a battle healer so that your push becomes harder to kill. Use 3 of these cards in your deck. To counter air, you only need 1 card. Since Elixir Golem decks are all about offense, don't worry about adding too much defense in your deck. Cards like Witch, Electro Dragon, or Archers fit this role nicely. Use the evolved version of these cards if you have it.
Bro, this
Elixir
card...
Golem decks rely on building dual lane pushes in double elixir. So for that, you need a cheap cycle card like Skeletons, Bat, or Bomber. This can also be your second evolved card. For small spells, Arrows, Goblin Curse, and Rage Spell are popular options. You can use 2 of them to complete your deck. Goblin Giant. The Goblin Giant
I'm actually about to skip this one. I'm not even trolling.
is a 6 elixir win condition which carries 2 spear goblins on its back. Goblin Giant decks are highly aggressive decks with little to no defense. To make a good Goblin Giant deck, you need to have cards that can end the game in one push. So think of cards like P.E.K.K.A, Sparky, Prince, Mini P.E.K.K.A, Elite Barbarians, Boss Bandit, or Goblin Machine. All of these pair very well with a Goblin Giant. You will need 3 of these cards in your deck. To deal with air threats, Goblin Giant decks run mostly a single air defensive card. This card can be either Mega Minion, Phoenix, Electro Wizard, or even Hunter. While playing Goblin Giant, you need to cycle to your aggressive cards fast. So having a cycle card like Heal Spirit, Bats, Skeletons, or Bomber is also very necessary. Use one of these cards. If you're using Goblin Giant decks, then Rage, Arrows, Zap are the best choices for small spells, while Fireball and Lightning are the only 2 good options for a big spell. You can either run 2 small spells or 1 small spell and 1 big spell with a Goblin Giant. X-Bow. The X-Bow is a 6 elixir siege win condition. That means you can attack your opponent's towers from your side of the arena if you place it near the bridge. Now, this makes X-Bow a super important card and therefore protecting it is really necessary. So the whole deck needs to be built accordingly. Tesla is a must-have card in your X-Bow deck. The reason for that is because Tesla occupies a 2x2 tile space in the arena, so this makes it perfect for protecting the expo because no other buildings can be placed in front of the
I wonder who the first ever person to find that combo out, like Expo Tesla.
Now, you need a mini tank to protect both the Expo and Tesla. A Knight or Valkyrie are considered the best for this role. They're not that costly and can counter most ground cards. Expo can struggle against beatdown decks, so having a card that can quickly take down tanks is much needed in your deck. Cards like Archers and Musketeer are used with Expo to fulfill this role. You can also use Ice Wizard, but then you need to combine him with Tornado too. Expo decks carry mostly 2 spells, one big spell to spell cycle in double and triple elixir, and one small spell to take care of swarms. For big spells, Rocket and Fireball are the 2 best options, and in case of small spells, the Log, Tornado, or Snowball are preferred, although arrows won't be too bad either. And finally, since Expo decks are supposed to be super fast, you need not 1, but 2 cycle cards to get back to your Expo quickly. Use either skeletons or goblins to tank critical hit, and choose one from either of the spirits, except the healed spirit. Hog Rider. The Hog Rider is a fast 4 elixir win condition with decent hit points and heavy damage. Hog decks are usually quite fast, since the main goal is to outcycle your opponent's counters. To defend against ground threats and to tank for the Hog Rider, you will need a mini tank. Valkyrie, Knight, Mighty Miner, or even a Golden Knight are a good fit for this role. You can also use an Ice Golem since it's really useful in kiting troops to the other lane. Use one of these cards. Buildings are necessary for Hog Rider decks, else you're a toast against beatdown. Buildings like Cannon, Goblin Hut, Bomb Tower, and Tesla are preferred with Hog Rider decks. Use one of these buildings. You'll also need to have a reliable card which can deal with both air and ground cards. Alright! And help on defense. Firecracker, Musketeer, Archer, Queen, or Executioner can be used. Pick any one of these cards for your deck. Since Hog Rider decks are supposed to be quite fast, you need 2 cheap cycle cards. Use one of either Ice Spirit or Electro Spirit, and one of either Skeletons or Goblins.
This deck is just... I can't stand this deck.
Rider decks are quite versatile, therefore you can use most spells with them.
Definitely good.
For big spells, I'd recommend Fireball and Earthquake, but you can also use Lightning or even Rocket. But don't use Poison, since it's too slow. As for the small spell, the Log, Arrows, and Snowball are great choices.
Okay, do not use Rocket. I don't know why he said that. Just use Earthquake, bro.
Use any one of them to complete your deck. Electro Giant. The Electro Giant is a 7 elixir tank that stuns and deals damage to any enemy troop in its range. Electro Giant decks are usually heavy and rely on getting your Electro Giant to the tower anyhow. Since Electro Giant is a beatdown card, you'll need good support behind it. Golden Knight, Dark Prince, and Bowler synergize really well with the Electro Giant. Use any 1 or 2 of these cards in your deck. To deal with air troops, you only need a single card since the Electro Giant is a great counter to air troops in itself. Cards like Phoenix, Baby Dragon, Inferno Dragon fit this role perfectly. A building card is also necessary for defense, since Electro Giant decks don't run many defensive troops. A building like Cannon, Goblin Cage, or Goblin Hut can be a good choice. Use your evolved versions if you have them. To deal with swarms and to cycle cards efficiently, you need to have cheap cards in your decks. Think of cards like Barbarian Barrel, Fire Spirit, Skeletons, and Bomber, or even Guards. Use 1 or 2 of these cards. Now when it comes to spells, you're forced to use 2 particular spells. You have to use both the Lightning and Tornado in your deck.
Bro, the reason why Tornado is nasty with E-Giant is because you can yank the small units into his radius and it just saps them.
Lightning can help destroy the enemy's defensive buildings and take care of Infernos, while the Tornado is super helpful to pull your opponent's troops towards your Electro Giant so that he can destroy them easily. Lava Hound. The Lava Hound is a 7 elixir air tank win condition. When destroyed, it bursts into little lava pups. Lava Hound deck are really strong on offense and usually quite heavy. Since the Lava Hound deals very low damage by itself, you'll always need a second win condition in your deck. The Balloon is the best win condition to pair with the Lava Hound, followed by the Miner. You can either have one of them or both in your deck. Lava Hound decks also run 2 extra air cards to build a strong push. Cards like Inferno Dragon, Skeleton Dragon, Phoenix, Mega Minion, or the Flying Machine are usually paired with a Lava Hound. Use 2 of these cards while building your deck. For ground defense, Lava Hound decks will either run a mini tank plus swarm card or a mini tank plus building. You can use either one of
Bro, I think Valkyrie Evo Cage is the best.
Valkyrie, Knight, or Barbarians to fulfill the role of a mini tank. For buildings, it's advised to use only Tombstone or Goblin Cage, since these buildings are great at stopping punishing cards like Prince or Mini P.E.K.K.A. As for swarms, you can have guards, Goblin Gang, or skeletons. You can also use the bomber instead. Personally, I prefer the building plus mini tank combination. Finally, for spells, you can't use any spell which is either too slow or attacks only ground cards. So that leaves us with only 2 options for big spells, Fireball and Lightning. Use any one in your deck. For small spells, you can use a Zap, Arrows, or Snowball. If you have the evolved version of these spells, make sure to use it. Ram Rider. The Ram Rider is a 5 elixir win condition that charges towards towers while immobilizing enemy troops. Ram Rider decks are the most aggressive decks in the game, where you spam cards on the bridge. Ram Rider is not that difficult to counter on her own, so you need an aggressive tank in front of her. An aggressive tank is something with a lot of HP, but which deals a lot of damage too. So cards like P.E.K.K.A., Mega Knight, or Boss Bandit are a must-have in Ram Rider decks. Choose any.
Bro, that Ram Rider Boss Bandit deck is AIDS. Like, so hard to defend.
One of them. As I said earlier, Ram Rider decks are bridge spam decks, so you need cards which can deploy on the bridge frequently. These cards, despite not being too expensive, will always force out a response from your opponent. So think of cards like Bandit, Royal Ghost, Dark Prince, or even Guards. Use 2 of these cards in your deck. Since Ram Rider decks rely on heavy ground offense, you don't need super strong air defense. A single card like Executioner, Archer Queen, Inferno Dragon, Firecracker, or an Electro Wizard should be more than enough. Use the evolution of these cards if you have them. Because most of your ground cards are meant to be used on offense, you also need something for light ground defense and for cycling cards fast. So, cards like Skeletons, Barbarian Barrel, or Guards can be a good fit. Use one of these cards in your deck. Ram Rider decks pair really well with Lightning, as it can one-shot buildings. This can help your Ram Rider get a charge on the tower. Alternatively, you can also use a Fireball as your big spell. As for the small spell, you can use basically any with Ram Rider decks, although
I think Evo Snow's probably the best.
Snowball and Arrows are the top options. Goblin Barrel. The Goblin Barrel is a 3 elixir win condition which spawns 3 goblins and can be deployed anywhere in the arena. Goblin Barrel decks are called spell bait decks because their goal is to bait out the opponent's spells so that the Goblin Barrel can get damage. To bait out small spells from your opponent, you first need a variety of swarm cards. Cards like Goblin Gang, Guards, Skeleton Army, or even Wall Breakers are great to bait out small spells. Consider using 1 to 3 such cards in your deck. Now, you need squishy ranged cards, which can also bait out spells. These cards also need to attack air, else your deck's air defense will become weak. Princess, Dart Goblin, and Firecracker are the best options. Princess is a must-use in the deck, considering how annoying she is. You can use 1 to 3 such ranged cards. Adding a mini tank in your deck can help you with ground defense as well as tank for your Goblin Barrel. Knight, Valkyrie, Dark Prince, and Mighty Miner are the best cards to fit this role.
Bro, this deck is so brain rot.
Use one of these cards in your deck. Consider using a Spirit card for a fast cycle. Ice Spirit is the best option out of the 4. Not only can it provide you with a faster cycle, but it can also be used as a small tank for your Goblin Barrel. A building card is necessary for bait decks too. Although I would say it's not mandatory, still it's considered a safe option to use a building like Cannon, Inferno Dragon, Tesla, or Bomb Tower to defend against beatdown decks. Having a small spell is mandatory in bait decks to deal with swarms cards. The Log and Arrows are the best spells to use with the spell bait. And finally, you need a big spell to finish off games, as it can be hard to get damage in double and triple elixir. Rocket is the #1 choice for this, although you can skip the big spell and add another swarm card to apply even more pressure. Battle Ram. The Battle Ram is a 4 elixir win condition, which charges towards the tower. When it's destroyed, it spawns 2 barbarians. To build a Battle Ram deck, you need highly aggressive cards, but also decent defense. So, to have a good blend of both, you first need an aggressive tank in your deck. This tank can attack, defend, and will always force your opponents to make a mistake. P.E.K.K.A. and Mega Knight are the best choices for this, but you can also use the Boss Bandit. To apply pressure on the bridge, you need 2 aggressive spam cards. Bandit, Dark Prince, Royal Ghost, or even Lumberjack are good for this role. These cards can bait out a specific response from your opponent so that your Battle Ram can get a tower connection.
Also, I feel like Mother Witch is good in this deck.
For air defense, you will need at least 2 cards. You can choose from cards like Electro Wizard, Magic Archer, Musketeer, Minions, Mother Witch, Little Prince, or even the Archer Queen. There's a lot of choices and you just need 2 of them. So choose according to your level.
I think Mother Witch is best because, like, if they go like skeletons or something on your Battle Ram or Skeleton Army or Goblin Gang, like, or minions, you can just flip it to pigs.
And personal preference. You need a big spell to finish games and deal damage to troops and buildings. Mostly all big spells work with Battle Ram except Rocket, so you can have one of either Fireball, Poison, or Lightning. For a small spell, Zap is the best option, but you can also use Arrows or the Log to take care of swarm units. Mortar! The Mortar is a 4 elixir siege win condition which attacks enemy towers from the bridge. Mortar decks are usually really spammy to annoy the opponent. Most Mortar decks need to have at least 3 swarm cards. These cards force your opponent to get into negative elixir trades on defense so that your Mortar has a higher chance of getting a tower connection. Goblin Gang, Bats, Spear Goblins, Skeleton Barrel, Guards, or Skeleton Army can be used for this role. Use 3 of these cards in your deck. A Miner is a super useful card to have in your deck because it acts as a second win condition. Mortar games can go for quite a long time, so having a
Chat, what do you think is more skill, Mortar or X-Bow?
Miner in your deck allows you to get damage faster. Also, it synergizes really well with all the swarms.
Chat, but X-Bow, right? What do y'all think? I feel like majority of people are saying Mortar.
In Mortar decks. It's not a must-have card, but it's advised to always run a Miner with Mortar. Now, you need something to defend air cards. Musketeer, Firecracker, and Ice Wizard are often seen in Mortar decks since they're cheap and do the job pretty well. You require 2 tanks at least in your deck to defend your Mortar and also apply offensive pressure. Skeleton King is a good choice since his ability is complemented by all the swarms. But if you don't have him, you can also use Cannon Cart, Knight, Valkyrie, Goblin Stein, or Goblin Machine.
I kind of disagree with this deck. I would not have Musketeer. I also wouldn't have Spears. Bro, you should just have, like, Skeleton Barrel and, like, Skeleton King.
Use 2 of these cards in your deck. As for the spells, follow this simple rule. If you're running a Mortar deck with a Miner, use only a small spell like Arrows or the Log. But if you're not playing the Miner, you also need a big spell like Rocket, Lightning, or Fireball in your deck. Goblin Drill. The Goblin Drill is a 4 elixir win condition that burrows underground and can appear anywhere in the arena. Usually, you will always want to deploy your Goblin Drill directly on the opponent's tower. Goblin Drill decks are always quite fast in cycle, so keep that in mind while building your deck. First of all, you need a mini tank in your deck. This mini tank can soak hits from the tower while your Goblin Drill deals damage. Knight, Valkyrie, Mighty Miner, or Golden Knight are great examples. Use one of these cards in your deck. Now, you need 2 cycle cards to make your deck extremely fast. Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, Bomber, Guards, and Skeletons.
You could also use Berserker instead of Knight too.
Are the best choices. Use any 2 of them. Since the opponent has to drop troops extremely close to their towers to defend the Goblin Drill, having a splash damage card in your deck can make the defense extremely difficult for them. Cards like Goblin Demolisher, Magic Archer, Bomber pair really well with the Goblin Drill. Make sure to have one of these cards in your deck. You also need a building card to defend on your side of the arena. Tesla, Goblin Hut, and Cannon are top choices. You can also use the Bomber Tower if you really want. Goblin Drill decks usually either run 2 small spells or 1 big spell and 1 small spell. Fireball and Poison are the only 2 good choices for a big spell since other big spells will make the deck expensive. Snowball and the Log are mainly preferred for the small spells, but you can also use arrows. Always use 2 spells with Goblin Drill decks. Giant! The Giant is a 5 elixir tank and acts as a beatdown win condition. Giant decks require punishing the opponents at the right moment, so Giant decks are always built around punishing cards. Cards like Prince, Dark Prince, Lumberjack, Bowler, Sparky, Boss Bandit, Mini P.E.K.K.A. or Goblin Machine are the best to pair with a giant. Additionally, you can also build a giant graveyard deck where the graveyard in itself serves this purpose. You need to have at least
That is the GOAT deck!
2 punishing cards in your giant deck. To defend against air threats, giant decks often use Witch, Archers, Minions, Musketeer, Mega Minion, or the Electro Wizard. Having 1 or 2 of these cards in your deck helps you deal against air threats. You also need to have a light defensive unit that can defend pushes efficiently, since
Yeah, dude, I feel like every time I play a giant player, they always have Bomber and Prince.
want to waste your main offensive cards on defense, so having cards like Bomber, Guards, Goblin Gang, or Skeleton Army can fulfill that role. Pick one of these for your deck. Giant decks always run 2 small spells, since its offense is weak against swarms, so spells like Rage, Arrows, Zap, and Snowball are a must-have in your deck. Now, if your deck is still incomplete, you can also add a big spell too, like Fireball or Lightning, which should complete your deck. Royal Hogs. The Royal Hogs are a 5 elixir swarm win condition. They are fast and quick at dealing damage. Royal Hogs decks are usually fast cycle decks, but there also exists a Royal Recruits version which you can play. But here we'll talk about the Royal Hogs cycle decks, since those are not that easy to build. Royal Hog decks are supposed to be really fast so that you can outcycle your opponent's counters.
Yeah.
You'll first need a card that can counter air, since Royal Hogs decks can be weak against air. Cards like Archer Queen, Musketeer, Firecracker, or the Witch can be great for this job. Now, you need cheap cycle cards in your deck to make it fast. There's nothing better than Skeletons and Ice Spirit to use with Royal Hogs, but you can additionally also use any other Spirits or Goblin cards if you really want. Always have 2 cycle cards in your deck. Since defense is not that easy while playing Royal Hogs, having a building in your deck can be useful. Buildings like Cannon, Goblin Hut, Tesla, or even Bomb Tower are good choices. Have at least
He's
one
gonna say Royal Delivery, right? You need Royal Delivery in this deck.
building in your deck. Royal Hogs decks will always run 2 to 3 spells. The Log, Royal Delivery,
Yes!
Arrow, Zap, Snowball, and Earthquake can be used as small spells. Use 2 to 3 small spells in your deck. For a big spell, Fireball and Lightning are preferred. You can
Bro,
use
this deck looks so fun because you basically just have one, like, actual legitimate troop. You have 2 cycle cards, a win condition, 3 spells, and a building. You literally have, like, one actual troop.
one big spell apart from 2 small spells, but don't use more than 3 spells at any cost.
Yeah.
3 Musketeers. The 3 Musketeers are the most expensive win condition in Clash Royale, costing 9 elixir. 3 Musketeers decks are usually dual
Bro,
lane
these decks are some of the most fun. 3 Musketeers might be the most fun to play.
pressure decks, so you need offensive cards in your deck. First of all, you need bridge spam cards for your deck. Bandit, Royal Ghost, Dark Prince, Elite Barbarians, Golden Knight, Lumberjack, and Prince are preferred options. You need to have 3 of these cards in your decks. Now, you need something to defend air threats apart from your 3 Musketeers, so pick 1 card out of Archers, Dark Goblin, Wizard, or Hunter to use in your deck. Adding a secondary win condition can be useful since 3 Musketeers don't directly go for the tower like other win conditions. Instead, they focus on building good elixir trades, so having a second win condition like Battle Ram, Miner, or Wall Breakers can be really helpful. A spell like Barbarian Barrel, Log, or Arrows can help clear the way for your aggressive cards, so make sure to have one of these cards in your deck.
Yes.
And finally, you definitely need an elixir collector in your deck. 3 Musketeers cost a whopping 9 elixir, and without an elixir collector, you'll never be able to build a big dual lane.
But not even just that, like, you need the Elixir Collector because of how expensive they are, but also the Elixir Collector is good bait for the 3 Musketeers. Like, some people they'll, like, Lightning the Elixir Collector, so then you can 3 Musketeers. Or they'll Fireball the Elixir Collector, so then you can 3 Musketeers. Or they'll poison the Elixir Collector. It's just good spell bait. It's so...
Push. Balloon. The Balloon is a heavy damage dealing 5 elixir win condition. There are many types of Balloon decks. We've discussed Lava Loon already. The second one is Lumberloon Freeze, which is this exact deck. But the third and most popular one is Balloon Cycle. To build this deck, you need to have 2 mini tanks in your deck. A miner is a must-have for this since he synergizes really well with a balloon. The second mini-tank can be one of Ice Golem or Knight. To deal with air, cards like Musketeer, Wizard, Mega Minion, or Inferno Dragon can help.
You need Musketeer, bro. You need the Evo Musketeer to like snipe buildings and stuff and air cards.
Use one or two of these cards in your deck to build a strong air defense. A building card is necessary as balloon decks are quite skillful and don't have much to defend with. A building card like Bomb Tower, Tesla, or Goblin Cage can make things easier on defense for you. Have at least one building in your balloon cycle deck. Having a small spell to take care of swarms is important. Spells like Zap, Snowball, or Goblin Barrel can do a good job for this. So carry one or two small spells in your deck. If there is still a spot remaining in your deck, then fill it with cheap cycle cards like Skeletons or Goblins to tank for critical hits. Wall Breakers. The Wall Breakers are a fast 2 elixir win condition. They go straight for the tower and explode, dealing heavy damage. While there are multiple variations of we'll talk about the most versatile version, Wall Breakers Cycle. Wall Breakers Cycle rely on a secondary win condition. A card like Miner or Goblin Drill has the best synergy with Wall Breakers, so have one of them in your deck to maximize your chances of getting damage. Having a building card is necessary to defend against beatdown decks. Consider choosing one from Cannon, Tesla, or Bomb Tower. A mini tank can help you both on offense.
Dude, this video just shows how versatile Miner is, bro. Miner is one of the best cards you can have upgraded because he synergizes in like 9 decks.
And defense. Cards like Valkyrie, Knight, Mighty Miner, and Boss Bandit are often paired with Wall Breakers. You can pick any one of these to use in your deck. A combination of a big and small spell is necessary as getting a Wall Breaker connection is rare. Fireball and Poison are great.
Oh no, it's not rare.
Choices for big spell, while the Log, Snowball, and Zap can fulfill the role of a small spell. Wall Breakers decks don't usually carry heavy air defense, but I would still recommend you to carry at least one air counter. Bats, Spear Goblins, Firecracker, Dart Goblin, or Musketeer can help you deal with air troops as well as ground cards. As the final card of your deck, you can have a cycle deck to make your Wall Breakers deck faster. Consider adding any spirit card or skeletons for this slot. Skeleton Barrel. The Skeleton Barrel is a 3 elixir flying win condition. When it pops, it drops a horde of skeletons on the ground. Skeleton Barrel decks are usually spell bait decks, which rely on baiting out the spells from your opponent. First of all, you need a heavy card that can apply pressure on offense as well as defend
Is he gonna show the best like Mega Knight deck?
efficiently. 2 cards are often seen in Skeleton Barrel decks, Mega Knight and Royal Recruits. Use any one of them in your deck. Next, you need squishy cards which can do a lot of damage if not taken care of. This will force your opponent to use a spell on them. Goblin Gang, Bats, Wall Breakers, Spear Goblins, Guards, Dot Goblin, or Firecrackers are the best cards for this. Use any 3 of these cards in your deck. A card like Miner and Mighty Miner is useful in Skeleton Barrel decks. These cards can tank for the skeletons from the barrel when it pops, so try to have one of these 2 cards in your deck as well. To counter air, you will need a card that is cheap and annoying because that's what this deck is all about. Inferno Dragon, Firecracker, or Dart Goblin can be used for this slot. These can also perform the additional function of baiting out a spell. And finally, you need a spell in your deck. Since you're probably already running a Miner, you don't need a big spell. Instead, aim for a small spell like Zap, the Log, or Arrows. Have one of these to complete your deck. Miner!
Dude, my rule of thumb always is like, if you are only gonna use one spell in a deck, you should always use arrows.
The Miner is a 3 elixir win condition
It's
that
so
can burrow
versatile.
underground and appear anywhere in the arena. Perhaps the most versatile win condition in the game, Miner has tons of decks around it, but we'll focus on the one that's been around for years, Miner Poison Cycle. So as the name suggests, Poison is a must-have in the deck. The other spell you can carry
This deck has so much aura. This deck is only for sophisticated individuals, bro.
is the Log or Zap. You can also use Tornado. Miner decks always need a mini tank. Valkyrie, Knight, Mighty Miner, Golden Knight are used often with Miner. Pick any one of them. A secondary win condition is always necessary because the Miner doesn't deal much damage
You heard of Muhammad Light, bro? He just uses Miner Rocket.
alone. And for this slot, I'd advise you use only the Wall Breakers since they're cheap and synergize perfectly with a Miner. To defend air, you can have an air counter like a Musketeer or Magic Archer in your deck. If you're using a Magic Archer, make sure to also run the Tornado since their synergy is top tier. Now, you need a building in your deck. It's a must-have because else the defenses can become a bit tricky. Bomb Tower, Tesla, Goblin Hut, Cannon, or even the Inferno Tower are all good choices. Pick any one of them for your deck. Finally, complete your deck with a Swarm card which can help you bait out spells. This way, your wall breakers can find it easier to connect with the tower. Bats, Spear Goblins, or Goblin Gang are useful for this role.
Yep.
Suspicious Bush. The Suspicious Bush is a 2 elixir invisible win condition. It only becomes visible when hit by a spell or it reaches a building or tower. Suspicious Bush decks are the fastest decks in the game, and they follow the spell bait rules too. Cheap cards like Ice Spirit, Fire Spirit, Spear Goblins, Dart Goblins, Goblin Gang, and Skeletons are necessary to include. Have at least 3 such cards in your deck. Wall Breakers are another important card.
Bro, is he not going to show Mega Knight?
In a Suspicious Bush deck, since they can force your opponent to decide whether they want to defend the Wall Breakers or the Suspicious Bush. A champion card is needed so that you can use its 3-card cycle to get back to your Suspicious Bush faster. Consider using Boss Bandit or a Mighty Miner for this slot. To counter air, you need a squishy card that can deal quick damage, but also bait out spells.
Nice
Therefore, Dart Goblin and Firecracker are the 2 best choices. Use any one of them in your deck. Finish building your deck by adding a small spell like the Log, Arrows, or Snowball. Every win condition is unique in itself.
Bro, he never did a Mega Knight deck. Hold on, I got y'all. Evo Mega Knight. Prince. You need a Goblin Gang. You also need Archer Queen, Bandit, Arrows. There's the Bandit. Where's the Archer Queen? You need Arrows. And Zap. There's Arrows. There's Zap. You need Bats. Okay. And then I'm just missing Goblin Gang. This is the best Mega Knight deck in the game. All you do is just wait for them to push, counter it with a Mega Knight, and then just bridge spam the other lane with like Bandit, Goblin Gang, Prince, Mega Knight Bats is always good. This deck is just insane. If you want, you could switch in Evo Zap for Evo Bats, but I would probably recommend Evo Zap, honestly. But yeah, this is the best Mega Knight deck in the game. I actually beat Morton with this deck.